I feel like I'm the only person that during the entire iteration of the existence of She-Hulk that I've thought, man, that's a terrible name. Why couldn't she just have like had her own name? Why is she just the she version of Hulk? You know? Like why did we just put the female in front of it? Couldn't she just have her own unique name? Like Hulk Woman. Like, we did that with Spider-Woman too. Marvel has not been kind to female superheroes. Anyway, I'm John Stark from movieguy.com, and this is my review of She-Hulk Episode 1. They do, however, create characters that end up getting fan bases, and even though I'm a blind film critic, I know what She-Hulk looks like. I could see at one point, so I understand She-Hulk. I played video games where I got to play as She-Hulk, so that was cool. Speaking of video games, let me tell you, when Hulk did his clap, I just done. I was done. I was like, oh my god, he's never done that before in the movies. Why didn't he do that in, to Thanos? Like, to anybody? Like, why did we save it for this? It was such an iconic moment. I was so happy to see it in there. It kind of just made the whole episode for me. I had such like a nerdy moment when he did that. I was like, oh my god. It happened finally. So Disney Plus has released another Marvel series. However, unfortunately, this is, I believe, the last Marvel series that they're planning for the year. I don't think there's another one that's scheduled to release this year. I think everything else is planned for 2023, which is really weird because I feel like we had them all like crammed together and then suddenly like there's nothing until next year. I mean, I'm sure they'll drop one like in January. It'll be like right there, like at the beginning of next year, but still nothing. That being said, I have heard that She-Hulk is a 9-episode run. So unlike the past couple, which have only been 6-episode runs, we will get an extra 3 weeks of weekly drops, so it will feel like it's lasting a little bit longer. So there's something. But how do I feel about this series? Well, let me tell you, first of all, that as far as the choice for She-Hulk, I was not originally on the Tatiana Maslany doing her Orphan Green train in this series. She did not have my vote. Of the people who were rumored to be getting it, she was the one that I thought was like the least interesting. I was actually really rooting for Stephanie Beatriz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, who also almost got the part. And I thought that was an interesting choice, considering the character she plays in Brooklyn Nine-Nine and some of the other roles she started breaking out into recently. She was in The Heights. She's a voice on Encanto. I felt like the trajectory of her as an actress is going, kind of felt like She-Hulk would be headed in the right direction. And then it went to Tatiana, and I was a little disappointed. I'm not full on hating. I'm never like people who were like, Brie Larson shouldn't be playing Captain Marvel. I'm not like one of those people. It's just when you know what options you're presented with, and you're given an opportunity to sort of root for like one of the handful of choices. Sometimes they prove you wrong. So I like Tatiana. Other times, of all the people who almost got to play Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich is still by far the wrong choice. Sorry. Is and always will be the wrong choice for that part. And they screen tested like half of Hollywood is screen tested for that. And then they were like, yep, Alden's good. And then they see the box office for Solo, and suddenly there are no more Star Wars stories. Huh. It's funny how that works out. They tried to blame the directors, but it's not the directors. That's what happens when you cast somebody who's absolutely nothing like Harrison Ford. And, yeah. Anyway, but the expectations were high here because you have to cast somebody, obviously, who can transition. I think most of these people, they're using the MCU Disney Plus series as a way of transitioning them so that later on we'll see them in the big screen, you know, in the movies, in the films. We're going to get them there, and they're going to build sort of like a new Avengers out of all of these characters so we can finally let some of these other people go and let them retire and not have to continuously play superheroes into their 60s and 70s. So that's kind of, you know, eventually one day we won't have Mark Ruffalo as Hulk. We might have an Amadeus Cho as Hulk, but we won't have Mark Ruffalo. But we will have a She-Hulk. So that's the plan. Just like we have a Kate Bishop now, and we have a new Black Widow, and that's all that's happening. We're just swapping heroes. So now we're getting in a new Hulk. Hopefully Mark Ruffalo will actually get a Hulk movie. I remember when Planet Hulk was supposed to be happening before he ends his run. That would be nice to see him actually, you know, not be punished for the sins of Edward Norton's past and actually be able to have his own Hulk movie. I feel like he's popular enough now that we could pull that off. But this series structures interestingly because it's a breaking the fourth wall series, and Tatiana looks at the camera and as She-Hulk, attorney at law, which is the official title of the series. And at first we think we're at the moment where we're going to start the series, and then we get like a flashback, and the whole first episode is a flashback. And it's kind of like, okay, it feels like crunched. It feels like we're crunched for time. Like we have to speed through her, like how she became She-Hulk. And like there aren't really a lot of questions answered. It's just sort of like, please accept it, because if we spend much more time explaining this to you, the whole series will just be an explanation of her origin story. And we'd really like to not spend a whole lot of time in the origin part. So instead they decided to kind of make it fun by bringing Hulk in there, and they were kind of fighting, and he's kind of training her and trying to get her to understand what being a Hulk is like. And you're just accept the fact that she's She-Hulk, that it just happened that quickly, that his loose description of what happened to her is just, that's it. That's all it is. It's just the genetics. And when he just got a little bit of blood in her, and then now she's the Hulk. If you overthink it, then that's not what the series wants you to do. So yeah, when I see critics who are like, this was stupid, I'm like, I totally feel you on that. I mean, like, because when you start really looking at some parts of this, there are some parts of it that are just like, yeah, okay. But it's tonally, I think, trying to be entertaining. I think it's trying to be lighthearted and fun and not take itself so seriously. I think when you have a serious show that decides to shove things like that aside and just sort of jump around like this, if this was taking itself more seriously, it wouldn't work. But because it's taking a more comedic approach to it, and she's breaking the fourth wall, and she's like, this is my story, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm ready for my closing. You get a different vibe from it. And in those vibes, rarely do we ever hold comedies, to the same standard that we do dramas, in terms of their, like, does everything make scientific perfect sense here? Did we get everything explained perfectly? Did we dot all the I's and cross all the T's here? So you could look at it either way. I could grade the show two different ways. So my grade is subjective into the fact that I thought it was fun. And then I'm also comparing it against other Marvel product and how other Disney MCU shows have worked in the past. And how did this work for the introduction of the character, her universe, all those sorts of things. And I thought it did a good job. I think it had a huge help from Mark Ruffalo. I think if this had been put all on Tatiana Maslany, like some of the other shows, I mean, it's where, there isn't an established hero, then you really have to put it all on the filmmakers. And I don't think the show would have been strong enough without him in the first, at least the way that they were going. If Mark Ruffalo was not in that car, if it was someone else and she was just on a road trip and then she hulked some other way, I don't think it would have worked. To rapidly move through that quickly through her origin story. But because we put Mark Ruffalo there and it made it a little bit more comedic, it ended up working. But, Moon Knight, we needed to take some time to kind of figure out who Moon Knight was, and the rules of Moon Knight actually played out over the run of his entire first season. We didn't get it in one episode. Not really. Not when you really think about it. Same thing with Miss Marvel. The entire first season was her origin story. So, yeah, they're able to smush it together because they're like, oh, she's like him. And then we just move on. So that way, I'm hoping episode 2, we get into an actual story so that She-Hulk is not like the last 2 things we've seen, where it's like an introduction into a character and it's like, will we ever see this character again? The fact that there is no future plans that have been announced for Moon Knight is disconcerting, because it's like, that was an origin story. We should be hearing more information by now, and we're not. At least I know that Kamala Khan is going to be in the Marvels next summer. I don't know where they're putting Moon Knight. So you don't do an origin story for a character and just walk away. It's just like, well, we introduced them. Enjoy. It's like, no, sir, you get back here. Bring us an explanation as to where this character is going to land in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If we're making an Eternals 2, which I've heard we are, we're making a Moon Knight season 2 or a Moon Knight movie. You can bring your ass back. Or you can put Moon Knight into the Eternals and make it interesting. But this is fine. You'll enjoy it, I think. The audio description was good. I enjoyed the description. The only thing that I have is, the only note that I have for audio description people would be like size comparison. And this is something that I talked about back with my Doctor Strange review when we were talking about Dormammu. And when you talk about adjectives and you're trying to just use an adjective to describe somebody's size, and I was pushing for the narrators of the world, who probably have dropped out by now and stopped watching this, but to use size comparison, so that way, instead of saying that something is gargantuan, like, what does that mean? Like, in relation to what? Like, how much bigger than something is he? Because I actually, as somebody who's only been blind for like 5 years, saw Doctor Strange, and I know how big Dormammu is compared to Stephen Strange. So when you say gargantuan, are people thinking that Dormammu is the same size as Hulk? Is he the same size as King Kong? Is he the same size as... What are you using for size relativity? You can't just use adjectives. You have to say he's larger than this. He's bigger, the size of this, so on and so forth. It's funny because I was just watching a news story where they were talking about the one of the lakes that's lost so much water. And they said how many feet it was, but until they put it in perspective by saying it's like a 15-story building. And then I was like, oh, well, I can picture that. Oh, shit. That's a lot of fucking water. Like that's, so sometimes just simply saying it in the quickest way possible that you have doesn't really do anything. But actually comparing them in size does. And every time I've ever seen She-Hulk, she never bulks up the same way that Hulk does. So I'm interested to really know size comparison wise. I know she maintains the strength and has her own thing, but they've always tried to keep her. She looks a lot more human. They keep her female form because Marvel was created by a bunch of comic nerds who are slightly pervy. So, for being honest, so they didn't. She-Hulk does not make the same transformation that Hulk does. Like, is she the same height? Is she like taller, smaller? So, when you make that and you have the two Hulks there together, I think that's an excellent time to really use size comparison. Instead of just saying that she grows taller, it's like, okay, taller than Hulk? Or, are her muscles bigger than Hulk? Like, what is not as big as Hulk? I mean, it's okay. All of those answers are okay, but you have to throw in the size comparison because otherwise, when you say she grows taller, like, is this the attack of the, 80-foot woman or whatever that obscure science fiction film from the 50s or 60s was? I mean, you just have to do a better job. You can't just say taller or bigger or large or gargantuan or gigantic or, you know what I'm saying? Like, as compared to what? Because our brains answer that question for you, and our brains can give us a totally different answer than what you intended. So, bet you didn't think I was going to talk about actual audio description in this episode, but I was. Look at that. That's why I'm a blind film critic. Some people are like, why do you put blind film critic? You want like a pat on the back for being blind? It's like, nah, dude. It's because I'm blind and it's how I approach cinema. And I can't talk about cool special effects, but I'm listening to the audio description. And when I have thoughts, I'm going to give them to you. So those are my thoughts on the audio description for She-Hulk. Could have done a better job of size relativity description. That is the thought. I don't even know. Like, the red thing that crossed, I have none. We got no description on that. There was just a red woman who crashed through a wall. Like, I don't know if she's bigger or smaller than She-Hulk. Nothing. It was just nonsense at the end of that episode. So, we have to do a better job with size relativity. That's that answer. So whoever's doing the narration for She-Hulk, if you ever watch this video, that's the review. I'm not going to give you a thumbs up right now. There's too many size relativity issues going on within this episode. So, that's it for me. I'm going to give She-Hulk an A-. I thought it was a decent start to the episode. I also thought it was really rushed. I thought they were trying to cram the entire origin story into, these things aren't even an hour. What was that, like 36 minutes? So they were just, like pedal to the metal all the way through, and they were hoping that you didn't notice some of the cracks. I noticed some of the cracks. But it was entertaining, and I'm hopeful for the future. And I'm hopeful that when I review episode 2, I'll be giving it an A. That the reason why we moved so fast is because we really wanted to get to the good stuff, If we don't get to the good stuff in episode 2, I'm going to be like, why the hell did we rush episode 1? So, anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe. You can go to my website, macmovieguy.com. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org, and the adna.org. And those will also give you information. Anyway, that's it for me. I got to review other things and see you on the other side.